Playhouse meeting order. Because we are being filmed, I think we should go around the table and introduce ourselves.
Can you hear Frank okay? Okay, Frank, you're gonna have to get right up on that mic, I think. Yeah, thank you.
Is that better?
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
It's hard to tell from here if you can actually hear out there.
We can hear you better.
Of course you can. I'm just loud. Thanks.
I can be a little louder.
There you go. Okay.
Okay. All right, welcome everyone, and let's introduce ourselves.
Alyssa Severs, Treasurer, City of Whitehall.
Julie Johnson.
Tom Zemer, Whitehall Council.
Frank Bednarik, and I'm with the Friends Group and chair this committee.
Steve Salter, Mayor of Whitehall.
Harris Smith, resident and business owner.
Ryan Brigel, resident, township and a business owner.
Beth Beeman, Managing Director of Playhouse.
Thank you. The first thing that I thought we would do is review the financials. We spent quite a bit of time over the last few days, weeks maybe, going over and over and over to make sure we identified everything for the last 5 years. And Alyssa's been very helpful in doing that, and likewise Lori, who was his predecessor, as I understand it, also had some input into this. I think the bottom line, if we look at the 5-year history, it's important to note that the theater pretty much all along, particularly the last couple of years, have raised over $300,000 a year on average for their own operation. I think that's an important point. It's not like that we're not generating revenue, we're generating some substantial revenue. Also, a point to raise is the current projections for this year. I believe that I believe they're pretty conservative, but we feel they're realistic. We're hopeful to do better, particularly with our May 1st event, where we announce the season as the Friends get together each year. That's going to be a $30 ticket. I think we undersold that.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
I heard that the Pound Buddies or something, they're sold theirs for $150.
Oh my goodness.
And they got 150 people. So perhaps next year. I guess we already have it printed, so we'll go with that. So we're optimistic that we probably will do better at that event. And we're going to have some auction items and some special deals for people, and that should work out fine. Right now, the projection is a deficit of $44,672. So that is kind of our view as to what we're looking at this year as the likelihood. We hope we can do better, but for planning purposes at this point, I think that's probably fairly reasonable. So, again, I don't know if there are any questions. We did take a close look at everything and feel we're right on the money with it. Alyssa, do you want to make any remarks about that as to how we went about it? I mean, we've kind of combed these things over and over again, so it's like.
Yes. Oh, we took actuals from the audit and projections, as Frank mentioned, and fine-toothed them and working with Beth and Cindy Beth and knowing what they're anticipating for these next 3 months or so to finish out our fiscal 25 and to get a very clear and accurate picture of where we feel that we're going to be coming in at. And I feel confident with these numbers. So, yeah, these projections are, they're probably the best we're going to get at this point until we actually close out the season. Yeah, definitely.
So So with that, let's move to the draft recommendations. I believe that we sent them out last Thursday or Friday, so they should be attached to the agenda. And I've had some review of this with Scott and Beth, and Alyssa, and but I accept full responsibility for all of them, so all the recommendations. And I'd like to start by saying what I tried to do here was take the input from all of the times that we've had discussion about the figure, including comments that were made to the city council, including comments that were made at the Friends meeting, and including suggestions that were made here as well. So it's a combination of input of everybody from that perspective, basically. And the way that I have framed it is it basically in 4 categories. Some of these recommendations are really for the staff, and it would be the staff either implementing them or putting them in the budget. And there are 2 categories. One would be some of these are just simply easy to implement and can be done. Others would be recommended in the budget for the city council to consider and ultimately approve for the upcoming fiscal year. And then there are recommendations for the city council to consider as well. And then some commitments, and what are the commitments in the future. So to get right into these, I think we would just go down the list and take any input that is there. Obviously, increase in ticket price for the summer season, we're recommending that they go from $27 to $30 for the evening, and for the matinees, $22 to $25. And then, of course, that gets into the flex ticket pricing as well, and will be adjusted accordingly. I think the viewpoint on that is about a 10% increase, a little over 10% increase, but it shouldn't affect ticket sales at all. If you look at pricing for other entertainment events in the area, this is well within reason with those events. Second item is increase the wine by the glass from $6 to $9. I've had some comment on that. Some think that's too high. Some don't. We could make it $8. I think we should have an increase. The beer would remain the same. The thinking on that is that it's a very limited time when you can buy. You know, it's at the start and it's at halftime, and then you're done. So you basically have 2 opportunities for sales. And it seems like if somebody wants a glass of wine, they may not have a glass of wine, but it could be otherwise. The goal for the beverage also is to add pre-mixed cocktails, but I don't know if that is compliant with the liquor license.
It is.
So,
It is. We currently sell the long drinks, which are gin-based drinks. So yes, if it comes in a can and it's pre-mixed and we're not mixing anything, we can do that. And they do have several options through our vendor.
A lot of options out there.
Yeah.
and they also make it good for other events as well.
Mhm.
So not just for the entertainment on stage, but for other types of events. And then a goal for the staff and everyone is to increase ticket sales by 20%. That would be a pretty significant goal, but I think we can do it, and a part of that will be when we hold the kickoff event. Is that we're looking to go very strong on ticket sales in that event. And we're also looking at sponsors. There's a tie between sponsors and ticket sales, so we want to look at that as well. How we tie those two together.
Was there a kickoff event last year?
Yes.
Yes.
We raised about $14,000, $14,000.
think it was the end of April, around that same time.
Pardon me?
It was the end of April, I think, last year.
Right, it's May 1st this year, we're looking to have the snowbirds back in town,
Was that the first year?
Yes.
yes.
Is there any type of discount for people that buy on the seats for people that buy season tickets versus if you buy them individually? Or is it just?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's what our flex passes are. We don't have season tickets as if you get the same seats every time.
Okay.
We offer a full flex pass, which is 12 tickets for the price of 10, or a mini flex pass, which is 6 tickets for the price of 5. And then the nice thing is you can use them all at once. You can use just one at a time, and then you can just buy your tickets as you go. It's a little bit more flexible.
Flexible.
So,
Yep.
hence the name flex pass.
But if you wanted a particular seat, you can buy them all at once.
You could, yeah, if you were, you know that I've got a couple that always like to sit on this left side, on this right side, in the third row, the first 2 seats, and they typically get their tickets all at once so that they don't worry about it, and they know what shows they want to go to, so people can do that.
I think last year there was some confusion about the Flex Pass, that it was just for the plays and not anything else.
Oh, that is true. Well, it was only for the summer plays. The only thing it wasn't for was for Peter Yarrow, because those tickets were more expensive. They did get a discount for the Peter Yarrow tickets, which unfortunately he was unable to make that show. But yeah, I hear that.
To get back to the question, the first time too, we did, it was a free event. We had volunteers from the Friends group actually did the hors d'oeuvres and the fixing of everything actually. This year we have a little different thing going on, and then we're going to have the local restaurants are participating to provide the hors d'oeuvres, the heavy hors d'oeuvres, and it's $30 a ticket for that. And we're hopeful to have at least 100 people. More. We're working very hard to make that happen, to make that a successful event. We will have some auction items there as well, and some ways to raise money in addition to just the event. And it will be a CatchMark. And then on the sponsorships, we're looking to try to raise $25,000 in sponsorships for the White Lake Youth Theater, sort of as a specific sponsorship opportunity. And we do have support of that now, but we're looking to increase that support. And then on the general sponsorships, we're looking at a 15% increase in that, which ties into what our the recommendation that would actually be made to the staff. Another thing that we're looking to do is increase the general charges for the rental of the facility. And I have done some work on looking at that because I checked with the Frauenthal. And also, I also did the pricing with Ramsdale. So if you look at those pricings, the Ramsdale for their ballroom is they have their pricing for peak season, and they have their price for off season, which is an interesting concept. Of their obviously their pricing for the peak season is a little higher. The Frauenthal has a different level of pricing, but they also have a fairly large endowment fund. So they're not in such a they're not trying to make it go entirely on the enterprise side of the deal, because they do have a fairly large endowment. And I did check with the Museum of Art, their rental rates are more in line with the Frauenthal, but the interesting thing about the museum is that they have rates for when they're open, and then they have rates for when they're closed.
Oh,
And the rates when they're closed are significantly higher because you have to bring in security, you have to bring in other staff, so on and so forth. So I think the rates that we're recommending are within the reasonable range for what the market is in the area. The other thing that came up in this discussion is the rates for nonprofits and the city and some other people using it. And we want to keep that as flexible as possible. That's a negotiated item. And also, if you're a sponsor, let's just say you're a $10,000 sponsor, perhaps a part of the benefit of being a sponsor is to get a package that includes the use of the theater.
yes.
So that's yet to be developed, but it's something that would induce sponsorships.
Frank,
Yes.
I did have a community member offer an idea along this line as well, as a possible, I don't know, inducement for city residents is if you were a city resident that you could get some kind of a discount if you were renting versus if you were a non-resident. So anyway, I just thought that was
That's a
an
good idea.
interesting, yeah, it's kind of, you know, they're taxpayers within the community, they're supporting the community here, and so that, I thought it was a very interesting idea as well. Don't know what that discount would be, but.
And that also comes into play with being a friend
Yeah.
of the theater. Is at a certain level of being a friend, you would be able to have some sort of
Discount
discount.
as well. So maybe that's a lot of, just a little more advertising about what the advantages of being a friend are.
Yes. I think from the point of view, these recommendations are primarily to go into the budget. So when we get a budget number, it would be a combination of all of those things. But the actual schedules of what those pricings would be up to the staff to develop a brochure and the sales
Yeah.
material.
Which of these categories in Frauenthal would
Closest to
be
us.
closest to ours in size and whatever? I don't.
I think the ballroom is primarily, that capacity is 275, and we're what, 357?
367?
367.
But their ballroom, that's a regular ballroom with tables and stuff? Is that correct?
Yeah, they have to set things up like we do as well. It's a pretty vacant space. All of their spaces are more or less like our lobby, I would say. They do some in their lobby. They do some at the Beardsley Theater on the second floor. They have 3 floors, I think.
Okay. So in the, which one is closest to our lobby size?
That I would say that's the one. The ballroom is the one.
The ballroom, okay.
Is closest, yes.
It's a little bigger. You're talking probably like, no, their ballroom is larger. But if you looked at like the Frau Lounge, like make that twice the size, that's about us. It's hard to, our spaces don't equate to each other.
Well, if you're doing a setup out in our area, how many people, what is the capacity that way?
Comfortably on round tables, you could probably put 10 round tables out there. It's gonna be tight, but you get about, that's what, 80 people? Yeah, 80 people out there, but then we also would have people, if you had too many people, you'd have set up on stage as well. So I'd say 80 is our capacity there.
Well, that would be then closer to the Fraulein.
Yes. For seating. It's a lot more if you're not doing a sit-down thing.
So we're looking for the rate being for the full theater. So you have everything. You have the
Yeah.
seating, you have the stage, you have the lobby, this being around $1,600.
And that includes tables and chairs and our setup of tables and chairs and chair down and all of that too, which a lot of these do not include that. I don't think that always includes tables and chairs,
And
but I could be wrong.
the other thing is that the tie into this is that that's about what the cost is to run on a 365 day, using a 365 day back. So it's close to that. So that's how we came up with the number of.
Because our current daily is about 1,200, right? Our current daily expenses are about 12, we calculated to be about 11 or 1,200.
We're about 850.
Oh, I thought it was more than that. That's my mistake. So right now we're at 850. So in order to make any money, it has to be more than 850. 850 just basically breaks us even. Okay. Thank you.
I think the point would be that we're kind of in the market. We're not out of the market. And I didn't go to the private places. We've heard of people paying $4,000 to go to wedding venues that are the more popular wedding venues. But it's clear that I think this could be a very popular wedding venue.
If I can back up just a second, Julie, your comment about the resident and non-resident, we used to do that for our parks, the rental of the parks, and we found that no matter where they're coming from, they always found a resident to actually rent the park in their name. So we just got rid of that.
Found
It's
a
just-
way around.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, we can still explore that, but I wouldn't have a whole lot of hopes that people won't figure that out real quick. They maybe come from Grand Rapids and, you know, their great aunt lives in Whitehall and she's gonna put the theater in her name to get the discount.
We do have that for cemetery plots.
That's true.
How does the VAC do that? They have a policy regarding residents and non-residents, right?
I have no idea.
I believe it's just children under the room, it's anywhere in practice, we just looked into it to really investigate as well. Can I make a suggestion?
Oh, go ahead, give me one. Sorry.
We could get away from that, would it be possible to do an off-season and on-season?
Oh,
And it costs $850 to keep the doors open regardless of if you're or not, correct? So
Correct.
if it was off-season, it was less busy, so then we have a prime time rate and then the not prime time rate, and then that would kind of keep it more local as well.
yes. So that is actually something that we have in place now. If you were to do a wedding, we're basically out of the wedding business in July and August because we're so busy. But if you were coming into May, June, that would be considered our high season for weddings. And for, yes, there is a separate price. We already have that in place. So those will be taken into consideration when we raise the rate. Oh yeah, we'll definitely have an off-season rate. How's that?
I like that,
Yeah. I do too.
a little bit more local love
Yep.
in the off-season,
Yep.
encouraging them to come use it perhaps.
And other nonprofits, we work with the Arts Council at White Lake, and there's other nonprofits that we work with that, we have a nonprofit rate that helps them to be able to, produce shows or do other, events and things here as well, so.
Yeah, I like that as well, to support the area nonprofits are
Yeah.
supporting each other.
Yep.
Kara, the way that I see this working is that the structure of all of this would be the staff once the council sets the budget. Because when we get the budget figure, that's the one that everyone has to live with their operating.
Mhm.
So the flexibility, we're trying to leave the flexibility to respond to some of these things at the staff level. Rather than just say, for example, if an entertainment was booked that would justify a $40 ticket, we don't want to be offering it for $30.
Right.
So we want to be sure that we have a relationship between what we're putting in here and what we're charging. And then the recommendation is to really try it, to stick very strongly to the $66,000, which I think is for the year. And then for the budget year next year, we're looking at moving the gala up to $150 a person.
Yep.
So we'll now set this year, we have 30% target this year.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
You think that's realistic,
I don't.
150 person?
We want to build to that, but, the Pound Buddies just did their event, they did $150. The Museum of Art does its gala, and it's $250 a ticket.
And what is
$3,000 a
It's
ticket.
$300 this year for the gala. Yeah.
$200 this year,
And the
and they're gonna sell out.
Yeah.
is in that same ballpark as well. Their gala is-
And it's basically a donation to the Playhouse.
Right.
It's support for the Playhouse.
The last thing is that the city is absorbing some administrative costs, and I call this in-kind costs. But we should know that, and I went over it with Alyssa, and we do have it in the budget now, so there is some dollars in there, what I think it's about $6,000, $5,000.
Trey,
Yes.
administrator for City Hall, is about 30,000.
30,000.
Wages and 30,000.
Which is something that we should reflect in the budget. We don't now, but it is a contribution that the city is making. It's basically something that isn't recognized, but it is important to the whole operation. So, our
You're putting, I guess I don't understand, you're putting it in the budget? How? Or where?
right now, I don't know where it's identified. It would be just the cost of the operation of the city's accounting and financial operation, the cost of the audit, all of the support of the telephone answering, clerical support during the winter and during the season is all benefiting the Playhouse, but it's not charged.
So it's not a cash expense for us, but it's more of an in-kind contribution to the operation.
Time, sure.
Time, yeah.
If the Playhouse were a separate entity, it would have all of these expenses.
Right.
But because it's an entity of the city has provided in-kind services to it as well, which is not uncommon in the government. That's
Until I saw this, I didn't know that the Playhouse also got the free use of another city building.
I don't have that in here, that's the scene shed.
Right. the
No,
same
it's not
shop.
free. We pay for the Playhouse, not we. The Playhouse is budgeted to pay for the water, gas, and sewer, electric, yeah, insurance.
Right, but as far as this, pay the expenses of it, but is that a building that, well, I don't know.
It was the old ambulance authority building that's right on the corner there by the city
Right.
hall. And when the ambulance left, it was a building that was available for us that we were not having to come up with extra revenue to rent a facility. Yeah. But we do pay for the maintenance and operations of that building as well as insurance.
Well, is that in the gas and electric bills that we see at the council meeting, that's included for both buildings then?
Correct. Can you speak to that, Alyssa?
The approximately annual expenditures in that building are about 4,500.
Okay.
They're minimal.
But to be clear, we're not raising enough revenue independently of the city, so that's part of the deficit, is, if you will, for the operation. So you're running about $40,000 short. You can say a part of that is the cost of the maintenance of the facilities. I mean, you could attribute it to anything, but you could clearly that. But we want to get all these issues on the table because they're all important to the long run success. So. And then the operational recommendations for the management are more the way they run the Playhouse, not necessarily that they're raising fees or that it would be directly seen in the budget. But it's kind of setting goals for how we would look at the future. The main piece of that is to not only look at the Playhouse as a place for theatrical productions or music performances, but to look at it as a community center and to do many things with the goal of having 180 user days a year, which is an aggressive goal. And within those 180 days, of course, some of it is prep and rehearsal. It's not all having events, direct events. But we look at wedding receptions, corporate meetings, life celebrations, children's events, dinner events. We've had some very successful dinner events here in the last 3 months. We talked about having a taste of White Lake back and it being a Playhouse event, which I think is a very good idea. At the council meeting, one of the council meetings that I attended, there was a suggestion to shut the Playhouse down, except for summer. I think a stronger, more reasonable recommendation is to look at January and February as 2 months that you would really basically only operate if you got something in here that was going to return on investment pretty substantially. So it wouldn't be you could make $1,000, you give the whole theater, but if you could get something that is paying, then do it, of course. But otherwise, it would stay dark because if you look at what was scheduled this January and February, you could have easily done those events in March and April. It was convenient to do them, but if you leave it dark, that saves utilities, saves staff time, saves quite a bit. I think you should add a donation box in the lobby. People who come to the theater support the theater, and often they'll drop in a $10 bill or $20 bill. Be surprised at how that adds up in a year's time. And selling a few items, I think, is important. We talked a lot about the marketing and the awareness of the Playhouse, and to have a T-shirt or a hat or a belt or something is also a part of the marketing program, and awareness of people being around. And again, a lot of the attendance at the Playhouse in the summer, people, vacationers, it's a fairly strong market for that. On the thermostats, there was quite a bit of discussion about that, and that was in the original study done 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, actually, I followed up on this just to share this information. We have the thermostats that we have in the building are called Penguin, it's the brand. And they are able to be connected to a central hub so that you can control them, but apparently that was not included in our package, from what I understand. So that is something that we'll need to look into to purchase. I don't know what the cost is on that kind of a system, but I'd be happy to look into it.
But just being programmable, you don't need a remote.
They're not programmable.
They're not?
They're not programmable from here. Not individually. You can't just say, oh, I want this to go up at 10 in the morning. These are the type of thermostats these are. They go through an app on your phone, and then you look, oh, I have a problem with the one on the house right side of the Playhouse, which is we had a problem with it. And that's where all this came from. So no, the answer is they're not programmable in and of themselves. They require this other little, I'd say it's like a router or something like that, that then you can connect to remotely, and then you can control them. And you can set the schedule remotely through the app, but they're not something that you can actually program.
What is the cost of that thing?
I don't know yet. I actually asked Doug Wardwell to find out for us what that cost would be. I don't know. I know that the new thermostat was $500. I think it was almost $500. So.
And that was that recent?
Yes. One day I walked in here and it was 90 degrees. So yeah, 80 some degrees in here. So something had happened where that stopped working, and then the furnace just kept going. The heater just kept going in here. So
was Tanya's study wrong then?
As far as
When Tanya had the heating energy experts come in?
we had The energy audit had recommended 2 program thermostats throughout all city facilities. That was a recommendation.
But I thought they said they already were,
Right.
but they weren't being programmed.
This building, I was not aware of the hub that was required, but they are programmable, should we have a hub. The other facilities are all programmed.
Okay. But this is 3-4 months later?
From the audit?
Yeah. Is it,
Not sure exactly.
Another thing I wondered about, it's probably 100 degrees up by the ceiling. Why didn't they recommend fans? I mean, it seems like they, putting a couple of fans up there would blow the heat down, and it seems like that would save a lot of money.
I don't have an answer.
I think the idea of this recommendation is that thermostats can be controlled.
Right.
And they can be controlled very, I do it at my house.
Yeah.
You go to Florida and you can set your thermostat. So we ought to be able to do that here. I think enough said of that. The other piece of, that we would recommend is that we do a 50-50 raffle. And that we do it for the summer season. And then at the end of the season, you would have the great prize winner.
It's a great idea.
And it's, I think that we can apply for the raffle license. And
Yep.
it's pretty simple to do, and we would split the deal with the understanding that if we only raise 16,000, we split 8,000.
Yep. It's a great idea, Frank.
And then this gets to the scene shop, the recommendations. The city, the basic recommendation on this is the city owns the theater and the city owns the scene shop. And the estimate of the utility cost for this and the maintenance of this, including some general custodial, is about $50,000 a year. Now, our goal as friends, and I think the goal of the management of the Playhouse, is to run the whole thing in the black and not need the city's money at all. But if I look at the next year, there's so many uncertainties that we don't know what the economy is going to do, we don't know what inflation is going to be. Are people getting a little more hesitant in spending money? Are sponsorships going to go down? I mean, every nonprofit in the world is worried about this, which includes the Ramsdale. Their city actually gives them $50,000 right now to operate on an annual basis. And interestingly, the way they do that is that they've hired a 501c3 to run it. And that 501c3 gets a subsidy of $50,000 from the city each year. And now they're asking for, I think, $175,000 more.
Yeah, they were in the academic.
So, what I'm recommending is that the city consider in the budget for the coming year a contribution of $50,000 to the Playhouse, and that they make a commitment to that contribution for the next 5 years, the 2025-26 budget through the 2035 budget. Now, as I said, our goal is you won't have to do that. But we need to have some sort of survival plan so that we can market it, promote it, do it on a daily basis. And I don't know enough about the city finances to say where it's coming from. I think that would be up to Scott and staff to make the first recommendation. The city ultimately to decide if it's general fund or if it's LDFA or if it's TIFA. I used to be aware of all of the rules surrounding those, but frankly, I'm not anymore. And so I don't think I'm able to make a recommendation other than to suggest that that it be done. And that maybe a good way to do it is to spread it among all those things. But I think that I did do a little look. I did look at the numbers, and I think my math is right. the overall city budget is 12.4 million. And the amount that would be, under that would be 0.0004% of all funds budgeted at 12.4 million. 0.0157% of the 3.19 million general fund operation. So we're talking about a small amount in comparison to what I would consider to be. For the future, I've been thinking about this endowment campaign a lot because I think that we have an opportunity to raise an endowment fund. And at first I was a little hesitant because I thought that we still had quite a bit to go on the capital fund. But checking with Alyssa, there's almost $4 million. There's $62,000 to come in this year, calendar year 25. And and there is another 42,000 for 26. So I don't see waiting because there's just not sufficient outstanding dollars there. And I would say I was rather pleased. I think that I'm correct on this. Of all the pledges, it appears like there's only 7,000 pledges not realized, which is pretty remarkable. And the good news is that this is investing money to cover it, right?
Right, yes.
That's the hope. So in looking at this recommendation of the city committing to 50,000 over the 5-year period, if we could raise between $1 million and $1.5 million, the endowment would throw off. Usually they throw off between 4% and 5%. So if you looked at it as 5%, it would throw off right away. But if you look at 4, you'd probably get more to 1.5. And right now there is an endowment of about 300,000.
Yes.
It is throwing off some support for the theater. And we're not counting that in this number. This would be in addition to what already exists. But to do an endowment campaign, you also have to spend about a year getting ready for it. It's not going to be something that you'll be able to do right away. But we would talk to the Friends group about this and get some input from them as well as to how they think that can be managed. And then with the endowment, one of the beauties of the endowment is that it never goes away. You have the endowment and you're constantly trying to increase the endowment. So every year or every 5 years, you have a legacy giving program. You ask for charitable contributions to the endowment. You keep trying to grow the endowment. And that would, again, relieve the burden on the city more in the long run. And you can do memorials, you can do future naming opportunities. I think we still have some naming opportunities that exist here.
Yeah, there are a few, and also we talked about selling seats as well. Having all of the seats, which are 367 and whatever that, comes up, and I think that would be a good as part of an endowment.
If there were $5,000 a seat,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be over $1.5 million.
I love that you can do that math so fast. That would be brilliant.
Just about less.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep.
Also, it depends on where the seat is.
Yes. Yeah. The two in the middle at the balcony, those are mine.
Mine's over there.
Good. So I think those are the recommendations. I think that if this is acceptable to the committee, we would then go forward to the city council. Share this with them.
Scott, is there a time frame where the Playhouse,
Speaking of that, because you're just talking to two.
is there a time frame that the Playhouse presents a budget to the city every year, or doesn't that happen now, or is it, when is the budget for next year, or for July 1 starting, when is it due to, anytime, just present it anytime now, or what?
Sorta. By charter, it has to be adopted by the city council, I believe, May 27th. We're gonna give it to the city council, I think we're scheduling a May 19th work session, and the council will get it, May 5th. Department heads, including Beth, have all submitted their capital needs and their operating needs for the next fiscal year, capital for 6 years. So we are meeting with staff on Friday to finalize that, and polish it up before we submit it to the council.
What are those dates again?
Oh, don't quote me on them, but I believe May 27th will be the city council public hearing and adoption of the budget, and that's by charter. The 19th, we would have a council work session, getting the budget to council by the 5th, so you've got 2 weeks prior to the budget work session. April 10th, Marina and the BLT will review theirs with the recommendation to council. So we're right in the midst of all of it. Started 1st of February.
So the 44,000 shortfall we're gonna have this year, we don't have a plan for that right now, we're just talking next year. I mean, the council's gonna, or the city's gonna have to cover that, correct? I mean, we don't have a plan for covering that 44,000 shortfall for this year.
Correct.
So are we supposed to propose something to the city on how to cover that, or is the city just gonna come up with something on that shortfall for this year?
Well, I guess other than raising Alyssa's anxiety level, in reality, if we close the audit with a deficit, the state of Michigan, our auditor in the state of Michigan will note that, and what we have to do is provide the state of Michigan a deficit reduction plan. I think we've done that once in the last 20 plus years, and basically what we would do is with these recommendations for the long term is we'd look at where that deficit falls and propose something to the state how we get out of that deficit. I think the last time we did it in 2 years. I think this could be a 3-year. But basically, if that's where we end on June 30th, then that is cash that has been spent.
So,
Just to kind of point out, the budget that was adopted projected a $90,000 deficit for this year.
this year, not next
So if we end up at 44, that's a good bad thing.
You projected a $90,000 deficit?
The city council adopted a budget with a $90,000 deficit for the Playhouse.
Oh, for the Playhouse.
Yes. Yep.
So I think you brought up some good points, Frank, and I don't have an argument against any of these things. Time will tell. If we increase drink prices by 50%, increase patrons' tickets, increase alcohol, I mean, those are some, will people just drink less and buy less tickets? And then, we don't move the needle at all?
Well, I think that just a little bit on that regard, is that we probably have the strongest lineup that we've had. I think there's been a lot of thought put into this by Beth and the committee in terms of what is being staged. And just with the lineup, our attendance should improve. Also, the impact of COVID is becoming less and less. Our audience is coming back. People have to know that there's production going on. A lot of this is relying on visitors as well. So I think that we can be optimistic about what we're doing, and we're also promoting it more, and we're collaborating with the Museum of Art and other people to get their audiences in there as well. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes.
So I'd like to be, again, devil's advocate for a second.
Sure.
So these are all great recommendations. I apologize, I was out of town for the last meeting, I missed that. So if I was a council member, I'd say these are great ideas, but we're really not cutting any expenses at all. We're calling for expenses of $347,000. If I was a council member, I'd say cut 10% of that, or or 5% or 15% or something, that's how and they could do that and throw it back at you and say, hey, we don't like this. They could cut, 10% out of that expense account, figure it out, right?
That's why I don't think we should make a recommendation on this year,
I agree.
because it's already done. I mean, it was done, and we can say, do it from here or there, but that really is something that is basically up to the council. The season is done, but for next year, if you say cut, the little problem that you have with doing this is what? Do you cut?
No question.
Because if you're going to run a theater, you gotta run it right, or you don't cut.
That we knew that going in. The challenge was going to be where can we increase revenue and where and if can we decrease expenses. No question.
We're not recommending any more staff, other than we are recommending that you do something about the cleaning of the theater, that we not even find the professional staff. Someone that is engaged to do that.
So that would be another hire, basically.
Not necessarily, it could be a contract. As well.
Well, I mean, but
It
this
would be an
another
expense. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It would be. But that's the only recommendation where we're making a recommendation that there be an additional expense. That there has been a partial expense in that now, but not a complete expense. During the summer season, there are. But overall, there are not. It would be like having a city manager clean the city hall.
Well, and if we're working to have more days with the facility being used, that's just gonna up the need, for cleaning. I mean, I think it would be, to your point, Frank, the city manager cleaning the city hall, it would be the same. I just don't know how that would be feasible for you, Beth, or for your part-time person if we're getting up to 180 days of usage. So I think it's an expense that would need to be added and could be, you look at getting the best quotes that we can out there and, keep that expense as low as we can, but it also is the guest experience. When I go to places and
You know if it's clean or not.
yeah, you notice if it's clean or not. So I think it is an expense that is pretty important.
And I just have to share this, and I'm not looking for an oh my gosh, but I actually didn't believe it when I did my timesheet today. In the last 2 weeks, with taking a full day off and 2 part days off, I had 97 hours. This isn't even our busy season. So there is no more me to go around. So when we start talking about 180 days, it's still me, and it's a half-time person with me. So, I'm at my end of where I can't do more than I'm doing. I was here for, last weekend I was here for 14 hours. I was here on Sunday for 8 hours. There's just nothing more I can do. So I want you all to be aware, when we're asking for $50,000 just to keep the operations and the lights on, Cindy, Beth, and I and the staff at the City Hall are doing everything we can to make this place successful. But I'm one person, and I'm getting older. And when I was 11 years ago, I had more energy, I had more physical ability than I do now. It's getting harder and harder. I just need to be honest with that and to say that thing out loud. I don't see it getting any better without staff.
But in this whole paper, there's no recommendation about getting more volunteer work.
We have volunteers, but there's still things that I have to do that are just me, that a volunteer can't do. It just is.
As far as in the last year, there was I don't remember how many people were paid for doing things, whether it was manning the ticket office or whatever. There was probably 6 people, I think, 5, 6, somewhere in that range that were paid. They're doing, maybe it's a lot more than that, I don't know.
So those would be house managers. So those are people that would be here when I'm not here or Cindy Beth is not here. So they're here not only running box office, but they're managing the facility. They're here responsible for making sure everything's open and closed, and they're managing the event.
Is that
So-
not something that could be volunteer work?
I have not been able to find anybody who's willing to volunteer to do it. It's, you know, that's a 6 to 8 hour commitment. That's not, I'm coming in and taking tickets at the door, which we have ushers and folks that, we do have volunteers that help us in the box office. We do have volunteers that help run concessions. But those are 2 to 3 hour commitments. When you're doing a full event, which is, you know, 6 to 8 hours, probably not going to find many people who are doing that. And it takes a specific person with a specific skill set. And, you know, every time you have volunteers, it's awesome to have extra help. But if you have to have somebody who's completely responsible for someone, they should be paid.
I was reading about the Redford Theater, which is over by Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember how big that is. I think it's a larger than this.
Mm-hmm.
They operate 100% by volunteers and donations, according to what I was reading about them. And,
That's Redford, yeah.
they do a lot of playing old time movies and things like that. They got a lot of maybe less spectacular events. But you know, how does a place get that kind of volunteer work? I guess
A huge residence pool. Redford's a big town.
Yeah.
We're 3,000. So I think that's probably, you know, explains a lot of that.
I think the other thing that you have to get to is what is the model that you want? Because you can go, I mean, you can just run the theater design. You can say that it's going to be all volunteer. You can say it's going to be all volunteer and we don't need the staff. You just bring it.
Well,
But I think you have to get that model and then look to fund that model. The model that we're recommending is the model that runs this theater for 180 performances or 180 musical days a year. And that's the model that I think fits the cachet of the theater, the community, and what this theater stands for. You know, if you look at it from a recreational point of view, it's another recreational opportunity in the community.
Right. This city owns this Playhouse. The community, the people of this community own this Playhouse. I want the city to support it. I want my tax dollars to support it, keep this open, keep it thriving.
but I think you're in the minority on that.
I don't believe so.
Oh, no.
Maybe on this,
Sorry.
no.
There's a lot of people that like it, but I think if you were to take a survey of the city residents, you would find out that the majority don't support it. If you really thought that was the truth, you could float a bond issue or a millage and find out. I'll bet you're afraid to do that. I want the theater to be here too, but I also want to please the majority of the people, and I don't mind putting $40,000 to it or something like that. And there's a lot of good stuff in here. There's a lot of good goals and so on. But I had 4 in particular here. You spoke to the one in particular about number 4, increasing the season and flex tickets by 20%. And if you can knock that off, that'd be great. And you said that was going to be an emphasis at the opening event. Securing a sponsorship for $25,000 and increasing the sponsorship in general by 15%. Well, that's all great, but that's a big question. You know, who's going to do it? As it is here, it's a hope for, it's a wish list thing, and I hope it comes true. But it's an awful lot of risk there. I mean, we can't do something as simple as having, you know, a thing as simple and obvious as having a contribution box out in front isn't there. How are we going to get something like this done? That's a question mark that I have.
I can address part of that for you.
Okay.
First of all, it goes to the lineup. It goes to what you're selling. And what we're selling is a season that is pretty well established. It's announced. And it's a ticket generator. So we're fairly
Well, I
confident
hope
that that's what it takes. You have to put a product on the stage in order to sell the tickets. Same with the sponsorships. You have to go out and ask the sponsorships. In order to start that process, we attended the Chamber of Commerce, what is this?
The Expo, the Business Expo at High
We
School.
had a booth there.
It was great.
The friends were there. We talked to many people there. We let everybody know that we needed sponsorships and that we wanted sponsorships. And then you have to go around and talk to each individual person for the sponsorships. It's not gonna happen by us sitting here and saying we want them. You gotta get out there and do it.
Well,
And that's
that's-
what the friends are doing. That's what Beth does. That's what Mary Beth does. We said it does. So the plan is in place to do this, to make the ask to do it.
But if, but I'll get back to what I asked about at the last meeting, or I think it was the last meeting. If that's being done on a continual basis, why did we only have one, business contribution in the last 6 months of last year?
I don't know.
We had a sponsorship, from the Chamber of Commerce, and we had a sponsorship from one other business. Because I asked Beth about that. Are we going to improve that much? You know, if we're going to, who's gonna do it? We need a commitment from somebody to do it, I guess.
I think there are several things going on. As I said, our event for May 1st is going to be an ask for sponsorships. That's what it's all about. We're looking to raise substantial funds from that. We are talking to other people privately about stepping up and sponsoring. But there are no guarantees. There are no guarantees that the utilities are going to remain the same. There are no guarantees that the electric's not going to go up. There are no guarantees that people are going to come to the theater if they're worried about the economy. And there are many factors out there. Do you have that going into every single budget that you do? I mean, as a city council, you're adopting a budget with a plan, but what goes wrong and what goes right within that plan can vary from day to day to day. Same thing's going to happen here. This theater, when we did the capital plan for this fund, we talked to the city council, a different group of people than today. But they committed to be with us the whole way. They put in well over $500,000 into the thing. They said if we did this, they would operate the theater. We talked to them that they had to do that or we weren't coming in. We weren't going to do the capital campaign. Did we want to save the theater because it was about to be closed down? It was in awful condition. The health department should have let it be open. So you have a situation where you have a new theater, and the choices they're infinite. You can go in all different directions. What we think we're recommending is a reasonable recommendation. Will something go wrong? Assuredly something will go wrong. I mean, there's no question about it. But will some things go right? I think assuredly some of these things will go right.
I think this is a great proposal, and I think we've only moved forward since we had the new build, we had the pandemic, and we're making strides from there, Tom. I really truly feel like, I guess I'm not seeing what you're saying. I feel like this is a good recommendation, and we have made steps to move forward and to help maintain the Playhouse financially.
Karen, I would say that an example of that is the restaurants in the community, those Whitehall, Montague, and the township stepped up and put on 3 events here, all volunteer with all their people, providing the food and everything else. It can be done. People are rallying around this, and the business community, the downtown commercial community, is very benefited by this. I mean, when you think of the people that come to town and the people that go to the restaurants, how many people go to the restaurants before the theater?
Absolutely.
We could go on and on with the benefits, and I think you know them. I don't want to belabor the point, but it is a decision for the city to make.
I was disappointed that I didn't see any council members at any of those fundraisers either.
I would say as well that I do think that there has been, even with this group, more maybe awareness made of the Playhouse And I think the events that have been held as fundraisers for the Playhouse have raised the awareness with local people within the community. And so I think that we're starting maybe from even a more positive place than maybe we were 6-8 weeks ago. And that momentum with a plan is a great place to be like springing off from. Is it a lot of work? Yeah, there is a lot of work here, but I do think the Friends are making quite a commitment to the Playhouse, even maybe more so than in the past. That's something that's different. Not that they didn't support, but I see a lot of things in here where they're really putting their necks out to say, we're gonna try to raise this, we're gonna really work towards this. So while there are probably lots of places over time to find potential savings as we move forward, you know, I think this is a reasonable proposal as well. I think the city does own the building. Yes, it maybe is a different time than some of the commitments that were made in the past, and I am very aware that just like in our own personal budgets, there are things that come up that you don't plan for, and you know, times change, but I do think, as you said as well, this is a vital piece of Whitehall, and it is a lot of money. I'm not saying it's not money, $50,000 is, but I think it's an investment not only in the Playhouse but in the community as a whole. And I think there are a lot of, it's, you know, you can look at numbers in a P&L, and that tells you one thing. But there's a lot of things when it comes to the arts or even different individual jobs. Let's say as a teacher, the impact that's made, maybe you can't put that as an ROI on a P&L, but it doesn't mean the impact wasn't there. And so I personally am in support of this proposal as well. I think you've made everybody here has made some good points, and I think there's all things we can move forward with, but I think this is a reasonable, good proposal.
So Frank, moving forward here, do you need a motion from us to approve this, to send this to the council, or what are we looking for?
I would say that would be.
All right, before we get to that, don't get me wrong, I'm a Playhouse guy too, but I will play devil's advocate.
Oh,
I can, and that's what Tom is doing, and that's what some of us are doing here. So don't get me wrong,
100%.
I am a proponent of this. So, if you need that, I'll make the motion to send this to council.
Is there support?
I'll support it.
Support it. Further discussion? You had some more points that you wanted to make.
No, I think I would. They'll probably come out of council.
One thing that I did want to mention was on the Playhouse side, that other venues like this are struggling. I mean, there's no question. We're not the only one disposed by any stretch of the imagination. And I was rather startled to learn of the Ramsdale's situation, where they are already receiving $50,000 in support from the community, but still not able to run. Now, their model is a little different than this one. They've actually hired a nonprofit corporation to run. So it is.
Nonprofit runs those speaking plans together, Community Foundation.
The foundation, the Trauma Theater.
Yeah, the Community Foundation runs that as well, so it's a safe setup.
They have a separate 501c that is the Trauma Theater, but it's overseen by the community.
And I actually do think that this committee has done a great job of asking questions and pushing back in areas of concern. And so I personally am proud of the work that has been done here and by all of the members here.
One last point I'd like to make on volunteers. We did talk about volunteers quite a bit. I talked quite a bit to Beth about volunteers. And we do have them, they're coming out of the walls in all kinds of places. All the people that did the food events, the people that, the meeters and greeters here, several of the all the Friends group of volunteers. Some of our friends even tend bar here.
Yes.
What more did you ask? I mean, it's, but we could always use more. And in some organizations, there's a volunteer coordinator that is employed to recruit volunteers and run volunteers. In some organizations, there's a marketing person who does all the social media. We rely on 2 people to do all of that. And what we're saying in this is that that's what we're going to rely on, with all due respect to Beth.
I'm aware.
We're saying that this theater, we think, can operate like that. We want her to slow down a little bit. We don't want her to clean. Maybe January and February can be less. Maybe she can take 3 days in Florida.
2 months?
But the whole idea is to move it forward, and I think that's what we're trying to do. If it doesn't work, then there'll be a different reaction.
So let me ask this question. It's good to see all the activity and people trying. Why wasn't this happening a year ago, 2 years ago? Why did it wait until the theater was so far in debt before anybody cared?
I don't have an answer to that because I'm just a volunteer myself.
Oh, I'm
so, but I have an observation.
Was the, and I don't know the phrase, and who's in it or anything like that, but did the Friends kind of go cool on it or something and not maintain their dedication to it? Or
I think that if we look at the history of the theater, and that's what, if you remember, I didn't bring that material with me, but the 10-year support of the theater, that there's been support of the city for this theater for we looked at from 2010 on, there was strong support for this theater all the way along the line by the city. So the city has traditionally supported this theater, and I think even before that, the city supported this theater in one form or another. It's now that the question has come up, do we or don't we continue to support it? And that's what we're wrestling with, is moving forward. And so when the question came up, do we support it or don't we support it, that's when the Friends started to step up and say, well, okay, we can try. We can try to get it to the black, but it's not going to get to the black in one day. It's going to take some time to get it there. And we're hopeful next year we'll do it. I mean, we're looking at $50,000. If we can bring it in within $50,000 or $30,000, we think we can do it. But we have to have a chance. If you I don't know what your alternative is at this point, because it's such a difficult situation. I mean, it's not an easy one, and it's not an easy one to get out of. Maybe you could look for someone to come in and buy it. I've heard people suggest that, they can buy it, but I don't think you're going to be able to sell it for what it's worth. And then does it serve the city like you want it to serve the city from a public policy?
there needs to be, I think, there needs to be a way to get to a higher percent, to make a higher percentage of the people in Whitehall. I hear what I hear when people ask me. There is a group of people that are obviously passionate about the theater and stuff, but I think it's a relatively small group. The majority of people in the town, from what I hear, just really don't care that much. A lot of them haven't been to the theater. And so I don't know if there's a way to turn that around or not.
So is it that they don't like it, they don't support it, or they don't come? Does that mean that they don't think the city should support it? I mean, I don't go to all the things in my township, and but I'm glad they're there. So is there room for that in the discussion, that just because you don't use it doesn't mean it's not good for your community? That's why I always find that a disconnect. because I don't like it or I don't go there, then I don't think we should have it or we shouldn't fund it. That's where I struggle, because to me, it's a whole community. Like, I love the parks, I love the splash pad, I love that we have a fire pit downtown when, people can hang out and watch their kids sled. But I always wonder what that means. When I hear people say they don't like the Playhouse, they don't support it, well, what does that mean? I just would like a little clarification if you have anything to offer.
Well, like the people that have spoken before, they don't want city money going to it because they don't like it. I don't know if that's right or not either, because I know we don't, I know that it's, there's a lot of things that don't generate money, but they're good for the community.
Right.
And that's why I say I'd like it to be here, but there's a lot of pushback.
I don't think you're gonna get those people to come if they haven't come in the past to support, come to a play or come to a music or whatever.
Right.
I think Scott and I were talking about this before. I and you send money every year with our taxes to the police department, sheriff, the state police, the fire department. I have never had a policeman at my house. I've never had a fire department at my house. I've never had an ambulance at my house.
Mm-hmm.
But I pay for that. And so do you.
I do wonder, one of the goals on this proposal is making this even more of a community center. And I feel like that is a really great aspirational goal and will help to wrap the theater's arms around the community. Maybe somebody may not be interested in the musicals that are coming in or a particular play, but you know what? The fundraiser or, a musical night with some food, that sounds really great. Or you know what? My company had the meeting in the lobby and I had never ever been here before, and now all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I'm going to take a look at it in a little bit different light. I think in addition to what you said with, your tax dollars, unfortunately we don't get a choice as to where they go. But I think it's a way to introduce more people here to this gem in the city. So just another way to kind of, I think aspirationally, that's a great goal. We can bring more people and get more exposure, because oftentimes people may just not know. It's not that they're really necessarily against it. They just don't know.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? If not, I think we should take a vote just to avoid. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. We'll take it to the council. I don't think
There,
the next
you do
council
a
meeting-
public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's okay.
Just hold on.
I just don't want to forget that. Nice job on all of this.
Indeed. There. You go with that.
The next council meeting is April 8th.
Would it be that one or the following one?
Pardon me?
Would it be April the 8th? Would it be the one that
Yes,
comes? April 8th.
Tuesday, yes. Actually, I believe we're,
Public comments. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment?
So, I have to say,
Oh, go right up to the microphone, dearest. Thank you.
so I've lived in this community for 40, I've been in this community now for 47 or 48 years, and I agree with Ryan. I have never had the fire department, an ambulance. I've never used those services, never once. But I still pay for them. My kids don't go to school in Whitehall anymore, but I support the schools. Now I know there's a whole group of people that want their public schools to go away. I am not one of them. Do your grandkids or kids go to Whitehall? Do you support the public schools? You don't have to answer me. I'm just asking for you to think about that. Because there's a whole bunch of things that maybe I don't use myself, but that doesn't mean I don't want somebody else to use those things.
I have 20 grandkids, by the way. But none of them live here.
Oh, but they probably have a public school that they go to, I would bet.
Some of them do.
Right.
Would
Yeah,
you
I can scream a little
identify
louder.
yourself?
Thank you, Frank.
Your name and address.
Oh, yeah, I'm Dee Jazzik, and I live at 204 Hanson Street, where there's never been a fire department. or police officer. And that's in Whitehall, Michigan.
Thank you.
Yes.
Scott Brown, city resident and also a city council member. I think you've proposed a lot of great new ideas, but still haven't addressed how we got here. You want the city council to commit to $50,000 a year for 5 years, above and beyond all the in-kind that they do presently. If if your wishes for running in the black don't come to fruition, what are the consequences? So we don't end up where we're at again right now. We were told when we were asked to do the bond proposal for the capital plan to do the renovation, that the Playhouse would be self-sufficient, and it hasn't been. So that's basically all I've got to say.
Thank you.
Kathy West, I live in Whitehall. My question is, what kind of community do we want to create here? We want tourists to come in, we leave their money, we bring in boats, we want to have restaurants. This community is way different than it was when I moved here 35 years ago. Way different. We've lost an awful lot of things. We talk about how we got here. Well, things change. Don't forget the impact of COVID. We raised all of this money to renovate this facility, and then it went dark for how long, Beth?
Almost about a year and a half.
And then how long did it take for people to come back after that? If you look all over the country, they're having problems coming back, and it's just now starting. So do we need a little bit of support for this Playhouse for 5 years to get it off the back into black where it needs to be? Yeah. The great ideas, look what's happened with many other things in this community. We still have Symphony. Is it different than it used to be? Yes. Yes, it's different, but we still have it. And it's a big deal to me to have a community that fosters the quality of life other than just go to work and come home. And I think this is part of that. We're developing the Lakeshore. We found a whole boatload of money apparently to buy Big John's and to develop that area and renovate and do all the things down there. Whole boatload of money to do that. That's a good thing for this community. I think we need to keep looking at how we move forward with the Playhouse and give it a chance. Give it a chance. That's all I got. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? We adjourn. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.